This is Dean Pozzi and Gemma Pozzi. I am the ProverbsGuys President, and Gemma is the gatekeeper to keep me halfway sane. I'm in love with Jesus Christ, and since 1981, when God delivered me from the darkness into the light. And we're here to tell you that we love for you guys to listen to our shows on ProverbsGuys on Sundays. I do a designer talk showing the intelligent, designly creatures, plants, universe. That is evidence, just evidence. It is evidence of a designer, or if it's evidence, I don't see how it can be of undesigned process, but the cause we see of the material universe is better with the designer. We are helpers at a ministry in Gemma's hometown of the Philippines. Beautiful place, beautiful people, and a lot of poor people though that we help out. Thank you everybody for watching ProverbsGuys Ministry. Dan Pozzi and First Lady Gemma
Pozzi.
Hello and welcome. Hopefully this time, what are we doing here? Hopefully this time it'll go better. Tried it one time and I wasn't. Wrong one. It's not going better. Help. It's too late for my tech guy. Let's remove that. Look at that. Look at that. Welcome to ProverbsGuys Ministry. I'm President Dan Pozzi, trying to keep this ship afloat. Of course, it's the Holy Spirit. We believe in Jesus Christ, Him crucified, resurrected, so that we can become children of God. And through the Holy Spirit, He will lead us and guide us. So anyhow, got a cool show tonight to me because I have a bunch of them, a bunch of videos I've watched, as you can imagine, because here at Designer Talk, we're trying to figure this out. All nature is just evidence. It is real-time evidence. We can all be biologists, intellectuals in our own minds, which is actually the state of all human beings. And we just want to see how we can look at things, look at this evidence, because a big part of the community here on YouTube and around the world believe that there is no God, creator, or anybody loving behind the creation. Here at ProverbsGuys Ministry, we just give the evidence, especially on my show here, and we let you make your own conclusions, unlike other places that will tell you what you should believe by this evidence. But as we get going, got some real cool videos I've watched, but of course I put them on my phone, watching YouTube here, and then I keep it for later use, and that would take time to get it from that device to my laptop here. So I like just going over videos first time with you to see. Now what we're going to do as creators, designers, we're going to investigate, how do we make these things? We, even as stupid, scientifically educated people. I have a degree in ornamental horticulture, which is one of the sciences in agriculture. So then more on with that, I've gotten into the design aspect of landscapes, where people say I'm pretty good. So let's design. We're going to see evidence, and we got two possibilities: that this stuff was designed for a purpose by an intelligence, or it just, popped in and it had to be and would be, and it was undesigned, and therefore really it's chance. Universal, the The great lottery of the sky put us in the sweet spot in the universe for life, and then we have life. But could it have happened? Let's look at some of these creatures and see if the best evidence is our universal knowledge that highly complex, organized, symbiotic relationships between these creatures could have ever happened by chance. Anyway, I'm not a gambler, and so that's why I lean towards the God of the Bible, which of course this evidence just goes to a loving creator. What more loving creator that is honest with us, had novel predictions to tell us what was going to go on with both opening up your heart to the Holy Spirit and God living inside you. So let's see our first one. Titled this Evolution is for Birds. How about evolution is for the mosquitoes? Check this one out. And I've only just started it, so we'll go and look at it together. Let's see here. Where are we? Boom. We're gonna do the year. All right. Here we go. We're going to design and create this. How do we do it? How many parts are we going to be able to imagine could have come by chance, random mutations to this creature's ancestry? Let's see. The remarkable anatomy of a mosquito. Come on, a mosquito. We can't. Let's see. That must be a simple creature that could happen easily by chance.
Full anatomy of a mosquito. This is a microscopic view of a mosquito. While on the outside seems like such a simple creature, God built it like a perfect machine.
Oh, cool. We didn't even know this was one of those wacko people that believed in a God. So all you guys who do not believe in a God, you can discount this because this person has a worldview that it was created. Oh, but then we'd have to get rid of anybody else's worldview. But all right, this is pretty cool so far. I'm not seeing how that thing could be created by chance without direction, but let's see what else it says.
A mosquito has a tiny head with 100 eyes exactly.
Okay, no problem, because we've had billions of years for that to evolve, except for we know that the trilobites had complex eyes in the Cambrian later. And then what they're telling us is that this probably evolved separately from. So these eyes here probably were not stemming from like a trilobite, which makes it even harder, because how do you evolve complex eyes, many of them totally different, hooked up to the brains differently? It just seems like such impossibility to have an eye evolve by chance mutations. Anyway, let's see.
In its mouth are 48 tiny teeth. In its chest, it has
Okay, we could have skipped the teeth thing because that's all I think what all of us dislike, those teeth going in there. So again, that had to be mutations from another animal, ancestor who didn't have teeth. And so what kind of scrambling in the DNA could have done that? Wow. And it says it has different hearts. We got to have some place to pump all those blood coming in.
3 hearts. Each heart has 2 atria and 2 ventricles. It has a thermal receptor to find body heat where it can feed. The heat sensitivity of this receptor is 1,000th of a degree Celsius. Let that sink in.
Okay, I can't let that sink in because I don't know Celsius, but all I know is that 1,000th of a degree Celsius is microscopic itself. So maybe since it is such a microscopic little part to a creature. Is that what? No, that doesn't make sense. How do you do that? How do we do that? How do we design this? We know we could get its little DNA out of there. We can pull out DNA, but how do you create that from? How do you change the DNA? Do you hear my puzzlement, my brain kind of like going is like, because that's the coolest little creature. Look at those wings. We don't have wings. Wow, let's go. Let's see. This must be easy to just have pop into existence by chance, random, and chance meaning that just this, because a lot of people think you, my my what do we call her? My knowledge keeper, no, my truth keeper, Robin, who tells me that I should say undirected mutations, but chance mutations means that just in this creature here, its descendant, whatever was the descendant of this creature, had chance mutations, which got all these things. Oh, come on, guys. Come on. Let's see. Let's see what else.
It has an advanced blood analyzer and an anesthetic device.
Okay. I know that it doesn't have a little hypodermic. That was creepy. Uh-oh. Trying to get back a little bit. That is cute. Okay. We don't like that. But it's a blood analyzer. Okay. Can you see our problem? We're not just making a cake here. We want to recreate this. In science, we can design, we can make things by figuring out how they were put together. How do you get a blood analyzer in this little creature? Oh my goodness. Talking about nanotechnology.
Analyzer and an anesthetic device so that its prey doesn't react to its sting. It has an anticoagulant device so that it can absorb the blood. It has 6 tiny blades on its suction hose, with 4 of them that makes the incision, and the other where the tube is formed to extract the blood. Lastly, they have hooks and claws on its feet to attach to its food source. Does this seem like something that came about by random mindless evolution? The quite obvious answer is no. Only by a planned intelligent creator could something like this exist. The remark.
Okay, and usually I just go with whatever, and a lot of times they are non-theists or non-creationists, but again, that doesn't go into all the joints of the legs. The flying, come on, flying, and then as you're flying, you're actually having a heat sensor, and I've heard, this might not be true, but I've heard that they can even sense the carbon dioxide. Again, this video is just straight off of YouTube. Could have some misinformation into it, but the reason it's believable is because nature's unbelievable. Anyway,
Remarkable anatomy of a mosquito. This is a microscopic view of a mosquito. While on the outside seems like such a simple creature, God built it like a perfect machine. A mosquito has a tiny head with 100 eyes exactly. In its mouth.
Wow. Wow. Let's see what else here. All right, be quiet. Stop sharing. Okay, let's go to another one here. So we can see that evolution is for the mosquitoes. Whoa, what is that? Oh, just going through things. Okay, let's see. Oh, we will get into was it Dorky Dan, Crazy Dan, one of my favorite YouTube guys, because he has got my sense of humor. Or yeah, I'm older, so he's got mine. What is, no, that's too long. We want shorts to go through together. We will all go together. Well, let's just start right here. That looks like no, that's a plant. We can do that later. But this one, let's check this out. We'll get it up there. Okay, good. Let me get that shared. We're going to see about a grasshopper. Let's share this one. So now we're going to go into another little creature, insector here. Let's see. How a grasshopper hiding eggs after laying. Like the little grasshoppers. So there we go. Oh, let's get him up there. Did you have to look at me through that whole thing last time? Oh, let's get him up there, me out of there. There we go. What are we going to see about a grasshopper? Okay, hiding eggs. Now, could this happen by chance? Check that out. Okay, who gave that little brain that idea? Okay, let's search for another one. That would be too easy. All right, we'll go to the next one. Okay, let's do another one. Because that had to be untrue. All right, get that out of here. Help me, help me. Having too much fun. Boom. Okay. Let us share this one now. This is just, man, I don't know about you guys, but this really, I don't know how you guys have faith that happened without a designer. I'm sorry. I guess maybe as a designer, as a judge of designs in landscapes and garden shows, it's dudes, you have so much faith if you believe this happened without a designer. Okay, let's do another one. These are so much cool. Okay. They don't. Oh, this was the guy I like. I don't know if he's Christian or not, but he makes it fun. Let's get him in big view. Let's share it. See if we can do this. There we go. Yep, that's it. Let's get that running.
Known as the bone eater. For obvious reasons. 90% of this bird's diet is literally just bones. They have one of, if not the strongest digestive system in the entire world, which is what makes this possible. But the crazy part is since all they eat is bones, they've developed a strategy on how to get them. Basically, they take flight and get an aerial view of all the predators and prey in their area. And then they literally lead the predators to the prey, allow them to do their thing, and collect the bones afterwards. Talk about an evil genius.
Okay. We're now. Come on. Can you see our problem? Now, not only. Okay, cool. That's cool. He likes bones. Whatever. His ancestors probably were pigs and they'd eat everything. And then poor Johnny had to eat just the leftovers. And then he was the fittest. So, no, come on, guys. But he leads other animals. Now, and I've watched other guy videos. These are nature videos that Odd Danny's his name. I think he's hysterical, but he's just showing evidence to nature. And YouTube is just so cool because we have thousands, how many thousands of nature videos showing things that are highly complex, not just complexity of snowflakes. This is beyond. This is specified complexity that you have to have. We're not even having to design something. The feathers, the eyesight, the beak, swallowing that bone. I don't know about you, but I'm an Italian guy. When I eat, I've clogged up the throat before. How do you do that? Come on, there must be some easy creature that we can show evolution has a chance. Let's go to YouTube again. My favorite. They have some good on Facebook too, but let's go. You and I for the first time. What do we got? Okay, go to the shorts. And I do so many animal shorts, they pretty well pop them up there. Oh, Helgraminites. That's an interesting little thing. Who eats these lionfish? You might be lying if you got that one. Your body's molecular machines. Oh, that's easy to pop in. Let's see. Oh, here's Odd Danny again. We got to go with him. A little longer, but it's the most violent animals. Okay, the most violent animals are smaller than a cat. Oh boy, yeah. Oh, this is a good one. Anyhow, I think I've seen this one before, but let's see. Let's get him up there. Let's stop him there. But he doesn't have advertisement like that. How do we stop him? Okay, let's get that back to the beginning. So again, we're going to go on these and how to design these. How were they designed? What's the design in them? And could that design have popped into existence without a designer? Oh, how are we doing this? We don't know. Okay. Problems with this one, but it's worth it. It is worth it. Hang on there, people. I'm in full screen, and I got to get out of full screen. There it is. They hide it too much. So we'll pop that up. We'll get rid of this one. Is this the one? Boom. And another Odd Danny. Like Odd Danny. Let's see. Let's put that one up here. Sorry if I had somebody that could do this for me, but I got late tonight. And one more. And this has to be an easy one. We're going to share these and have fun doing it. But as you can see, this is why I take the evidence of this highly complex animals, structures. And I'm saying, dude, you have so much more faith than I do that's saying this had no creator. All right, we're Odd Danny. There we go. We're going to pop him up. Where's he go? There it is down there. Full screen him. And then we're going to, so these are the most violent animals that are smaller than a cat.
What? You thought I was going to make this video without talking about the biggest menace in the animal kingdom? Ladies and gentlemen, the honey badger. It's basically a 30-pound bag of anger issues that belongs to the weasel family. They also belong to the Guinness Book of World Records as the most fearless animal in the world. But that's obvious. I mean, they literally square up with lions. They also steal lions' food and then fight them to defend the stolen food. That's gangster. Oh, but it's not just lions that get that treatment. Nope. Those paws are rated E for everyone. They've been known to attack and take down hyenas, African wild dogs, buffalo. They weigh 30 pounds, taking down...
Okay. I think they're all pretty crazy animals, but don't mess with this water buffalo. That dude, I don't know what size brain he is, but he's a killing machine. And a badger, honey badger, will take him down? Whoa.
A 2,000-pound beast. Make that make sense. But then again, for the honey badger, That's light work. They come stock with razor-sharp claws and a bite force that rivals a black bear. They could bite and break open a tortoise's shell. Let that sink in. They also have super thick rubbery skin that's extremely hard to penetrate. And that goes for anything. Claws, teeth, spears, machetes. I don't even think Buddy here realizes that he got new piercings. How do you think they're able to come out of situations like this unfazed? Oh, and they do side missions too. When they're not fighting animals 20 times their size, they're usually fighting venomous snakes. They'll eat a black mamba, they'll eat a cobra.
Okay. No, no. Black mamba, one of the most venomous snakes on the planet, especially at least in Africa. Well, on the planet, they're in the top. Plus, they've got an attitude. New guy, Uganda, that was protecting a neighbor's banana plantings. I don't know if they're orchard or whatever they call a banana grove. And neighbor's dog was there. He was a little kid and keeping the monkeys away. And the dog yelped. And luckily it hit the dog and not him, but it was a black mamba. And within 20 minutes, that dog was dead. This is no joke. To see, though, that kind of a symbiotic, anti-symbiotic relationship, that how many predators does this viper have? And that dude, okay, come on, guys. So the layer upon layer of complexity we're getting into, and you're saying, well, it happened by small increments over millions of years. Come on, guys. Come on. Do you know how many mutations that's going to take? Come on now. Please help me. Talk to me. Tell me how you have such faith. So might strengthen my faith. You have much more faith in nothing than I do in a creator that I see. I see the evidence right here. Let's see what else we got.
They'll eat a wasp nest with the wasps in it. And even if they get bit, they're resistant to venom. So they just sleep it off for a couple hours. And then it's on to round 2. But everybody knows the honey badger. This next one is the definition of a sleeper. Yep, that mouse was howling like a wolf. That ain't no ordinary mouse. That is the grasshopper mouse, also known as the werewolf mouse. It's basically a fun-sized, fully carnivorous hunter, and they are very aggressive. If you want smoke, you get it. They're known to hunt other mice, tarantulas, giant centipedes, snakes. In what world does a mouse hunt a snake? But their personal favorite is bark scorpions, which just so happens to be the most venomous scorpion in the US. But Mighty Mouse here, they don't care. Now, they have a slight immunity to most venom. Slight. But that's not the crazy part. Their body has the ability to convert venom into painkillers. That is literally the definition of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a superpower. Oh, but the best part by far is after they win in battle, they howl like a wolf to claim their territory. I don't care what nobody says. That is the coolest mouse in the world. Sorry, Mickey. Speaking of gangsters.
Okay, guys. So another little creature, different part of the planet, partly immune to the deadliest little scorpion in the States. Come on, guys. So there's obviously mutations working here because it's a mouse and it's different than other mouses. But how much of those mutations and these changes are that, and how many were in there to be beforehand? How much of this that makes him different than the kangaroo mouse was already in the DNA? Interesting, but this is highly organized complexity. You see where I'm going here, guys? This is evidence for creator. Romans 1:20, even nature shows God's majesty and power, and you're without excuse. At least say, all right, Lord, if you're there, let me know. What kind of sin must you be in to reject this kind of stuff. But you can see why I like Odd Danny here. He's got a great sense of humor.
In the U.S., you're going to like this one. I know. It looks cute. Don't let it fool you. That is the black-footed ferret. Now, they're only found in North America, and they're actually said to be the rarest animal in North America. Like, really rare. Scientists actually thought they were extinct for a while, so you'll probably never see one. Unless you're a prairie dog. They love prairie dogs for what they are inside. They eat prairie dogs. But how they hunt them is straight out of a horror movie. When they see a prairie dog, they don't attack it right away, but rather they wait and follow it to its burrow. And once they find the burrow, they camp out and wait for nighttime, when all the prairie dogs fall asleep. At that point, this ball of violence will sneak into the burrow and prepare its attack. What it does is it will nudge one of the prairie dogs to wake it up. Once the prairie dog wakes up, it will lift its head up, exposing its throat. And the ferret will clamp down on its throat and finish it before it can make a sound. And it will proceed to execute the entire colony over the course of a night. That is serial hunting. But the worst part is when it's all said and done, they will keep the burrow for themselves as their new home. And now their new home is filled with food. That's a villain story. Jesus Christ. Let's move on.
Okay, with that statement, he's probably not using Jesus Christ as a worship word. But again, guys, hopefully Odd Danny will see that this nature stuff had to have a creator. Come on, that is intelligent hunting. And you're telling me intelligence came from non-living chemicals. Come on, guys, you're making my head like go crazy. But this is just evidence, and you can believe that happened without a director, without a designer. You see now, and we even have not gone today into the microscopic, into the cells, all the cells in these creatures, thousands, billions, trillions upon trillions of cells on all the different life forms. And come on, guys, come on.
Yep, we definitely got to put this ball of purely condensed violence on the list. The wolverine is basically the honey badger's big brother. It's the largest member of the weasel family, getting between 30 and 50 pounds. Now, that's not very big, but it makes up for it with everything. Like the fact that they have molars that are rotated 90 degrees. That helps with crushing bones and ripping flesh. Or the fact that they have what some people would consider the sharpest claws in the entire animal kingdom. That's why this guy is called Wolverine. Sharp claws. You take all of that and you mix it with a really bad attitude and you get yourself one hell of a problem. They will literally fight anything. If you didn't notice the video at the beginning, that is a Wolverine taking down an elk. Do you know how big an elk is? They'll also chase bears away from their food. They'll chase wolves away from their food. And if these animals don't run, they'll fight and sometimes win. Now you're probably asking yourself, how would a wolverine take a bear? Well, it happens. In fact, there's one report of a wolverine killing a polar bear at a zoo. A 1,000-pound carnivore was taken out by an animal the size of a toddler. Wolverines are the definition of built different. I'd say we're pretty lucky. If wolverines were any bigger, we might not exist. On that note, I'm just gonna go to the next one.
I want to give him a hug.
Did I hear him say that he wants to give that thing a hug? You know what? We listen, but we don't judge. The Tasmanian Devil. After hearing that, it's a very fitting name. It's basically a 30-pound hyper-condensed version of John Wick that's part of the marsupial family. And this little monster is known for having a 1,200-pound bite force. It's about the same as a bear. Sorry, I should be more specific. A polar bear. It's actually the strongest bite force of any mammal in the world relative to its size. But then again, what do you expect? They literally eat bones. They also eat snakes and birds and rodents and cattle and basically anything with a heartbeat or without a heartbeat. They'll even eat carcasses. Another thing they're known for is having anger problems that no amount of therapy could fix. And trust me, you'll know when they're mad. They don't hide it. First off, their skin will start turning red and they'll start lunging at you. It's basically their version of taking off their jewelry. They'll also start spinning in circles, which is where the cartoon gets it from. Do you know how mad you have to be to just start spinning? Or they'll just start yelling at you, which is a sound that nobody could prepare you for.
You gotta laugh at him when he's on a screen. Again, guys, look at this little guy. And sure, you say, well, a mouse has whiskers. Shark has teeth. So they got to be related. Come on, guys. It's all building blocks of the same materials. We're all carbon-based animals, aren't I right? And so, is this evidence of common descent or common designer? Because you look at that, guys, it's like you got more faith than I do, and as we know, you know how fast I can talk, and this really gets my mind like twisted. So this, my friends, is evidence that your belief, your faith is religious-like. Now, actually, definition-wise, it's actually a definition of religion. You have faith in something you cannot see. There's no transitions that we can see. Yes, we see bones of an animal like this, and we have bones of an animal like a mouse fossilized up, and you say, well, that they must be related. Sorry, guys. Sorry. That billions of characters of DNA. So the things that are different between us and what you say a chimpanzee or another ape is in the millions of differences in us. Sure, we both have ears. DNA creates them both. We both have teeth. Us and the apes have hair. So yes, there's many things that the DNA imprint pops them out. But guess what? We have epigenetics. There are genetics above the genetics, the stop codings, the things that make it even more complex, more specific, and specialized complexity. Guys, come on. Oh, man. Oh, let's see if anybody's out there, because that is craziness. Anyhow, that's the mind of a creator. I'm still thinking, how do we do that? How do we, because even if there's a God, we've got the building blocks. And of course, we're talking evolution. So we're not going to talk chemical evolution, because usually evolution, of course, we'll told by our friends, it is only Claude. Link. I'm sorry. I was having so much fun there. I know you had some questions. Oh. Anyway, that was that presentation. And there we go. Let's see. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the cool little creatures. There we go. Welcome to Scriptures, Sand and Stone, and Claude. And again, a lot of our shows, we're specific topics. Mine is, of course, intelligent designer is the best explanation for the evidence we see. Why did God punish animals because of Adam? Oh, some good questions. Come on, Claude. So that's part of what I'll take. And I'll take all the rabbit holes. I am easily. If somebody wants to ask something about or explain how we, oh, sorry, Diamond Dave, if you're still there. I forgot. I was getting so into all that. I forgot to put the link out. And of course, on my show, I love having people to talk with me. And anyway, while I'm waiting, sorry, I'll go back through some of these thoughts on. Sorry, Eastern. Ooh, I'd have to look that one up. Come on. Hopefully you're still here, Eastern. I've sorry earlier when you were watching with the show. My friend John was making a presentation and I wasn't gonna open it up, and I saw you trying to get in, which you didn't get to at that point. We opened it up a little bit later. So I'll have to look that one up or wait for that one later. So let's see, we got scriptures and stones. 34, 36. I am not opposed to design argument. Even Darwin appreciated William Pauly's book. Hello, Claude. Natural theology with the watchmaker argument. However, do you think all parasitic adaptations were
So why would
fall?
an intelligent designer make these horrible animals?
Well, welcome, Claude.
Why not have no animals if you're going to make them horrible and eat each other?
That is a good point. And so just like evolution, we will both agree that things changed over time.
Well,
And
no, you can't have it both ways.
why not?
Come on. That's very convenient. No. So
Well,
either this God is great and is wonderful and just as perfect design, or it's not. and to what I can see, it's not.
Well, you know, Claude, I go back to a lot of my gardens that I designed perfectly, installed perfectly, and the people didn't take care of them, and they look horrible now. So
yeah, but God's in charge overall, so he could say, "Oh, we won't have any weeds." Zap, and there are no weeds.
well, the novel prediction that was made in the Bible is that the perfect creation was given, and at the fall, as you know, God just let men have what they want. It's just
But
like
we're talking about animals here who are innocent, and we're talking about plants who are innocent. We've got nothing to do. Why would a good God punish people that have done things rather, and animals that have done nothing wrong?
Now, what is an animal? Well, now, see, Claude, you think that animals have some kind. Well, no, you don't think any of us
don't
have
have a
any
soul.
purpose or soul. So how can you define an animal, say mutt, dog, or cat, or whatever it is? How can you say they're innocent? Innocent is.
Well, explain to me why God is punishing animals who had nothing to do with Adam or his wife eating a fruit. Fancy telling a woman not to do something, in a garden. Don't eat that fruit. Well, what do you think she's going to do? Eat the fruit, of course. It's
Well,
like
see,
giving
in that
me
time, though,
giving a child an ice cream, 2 ice creams, saying, "I'm just leaving the room. Don't you touch those ice creams." What's it going to do?
see, but that was after the fall. That wasn't a perfect creation. And I'd say to you, Claude, is like, do you think that a dog is any different than my computer? If I throw my
Yeah, of
computer
course it
into a
is.
swimming pool, was my computer was an innocent computer. It never did anything wrong. You would have to then you're putting value to little Fido.
What? Yes, what nonsense!
What do you mean what nonsense? You said
Throwing
animals are innocent.
your computer into a well, they are. They did nothing wrong. Animals, if they were created to do these things, then why punish them? But why create them to do these things in the first place?
Well, do you think
Why create
they have
pain?
they have some kind of soul? A lot of people think animals
Well,
are have
nobody has a
soul.
soul. Nothing has a soul.
Okay, so
But yeah.
why would you argue that an animal is innocent or non-innocent? It's just an animal. Why would you
Well,
judge
then, because I'm
humans?
I'm a caring person, and I don't wish to inflict harm on anybody, including animals. I'm not a cruel person. These people that don't mind hurting animals grow up to be the serial killers of this world.
And what's wrong with serial killers?
Well, my morality says it's bad. I mean, your God doesn't. He sort of was one of the first mass killers, so then he doesn't. But I do. I have morals.
Welcome, Dave. We're just chatting here about why Claude thinks that animals are innocent or not innocent. And
No, they're innocent.
that somebody. Well, what is?
Well, I mean, so innocence is a human concept that just doesn't exist in the animal kingdom. So I would disagree and say animals are not innocent.
Well,
They
I'm
are
saying, Dave, why are they punished as part of this creation nonsense about God creating everything perfect, but because of some woman eating something she shouldn't have done, then everything is condemned.
I see. Okay.
That's where it all came up. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Christian, obviously, so I don't even see that as like a punishment to begin with. It's kind of weird to me, but I don't think that that's a punishment.
Yeah, so that's where I come from. Is that to me, an animal is really cool and everything, but it doesn't really have, in my worldview, heart. I mean, soul, and so how can it be innocent or guilty of anything? It's just an animal. Like your favorite, Dr. Hovind, the lion eats the baby zebra, but he has no care about it. And mama zebra is going to run off and have more babies. It might be like
that's one of his most stupid things he's ever said. Well, there's been a lot of them, but going on about, is it wrong to go to your neighbor's house and eat the baby? Of course it is. I don't need to be a Christian to somehow think that's wrong. In fact, many Christians probably think it's right.
Now, so what should we do to the there's still cannibals in the world today, Claude? What should we do with those folks?
Well,
Should
the
we go
society will look after them.
I would say so. Let me jump in here. I would say, because I know you guys have been talking a bit. I have opinions too, but I would say nothing. I would say nothing, because morality is determined by people, and morality varies from culture to culture, right?
Yes.
You can't do anything about it, right? So for instance, like here in Mongolia, there are still animal sacrifices, right? It is very common in Mongolian shamanism as well as Tengronism. Now, you may not like it, but if you were to come here and try and stop it, the locals would not take kindly to that. You know what I mean? Because it's a part of the history and the culture. So morality will vary. And anyone can hop on, even like taking a less extreme, let's take a less extreme approach other than cannibalism, because I know on the internet, we all like extremes because it's fun, right? But like if you go to Japan, like in America, prostitution is looked down on, and people will divorce their husbands and wives for cheating on them. However, if you go to Japan, there are like my wife has family in Japan, and it's common in Japanese culture for men with girlfriends or wives to go to a brothel if their wife is menstruating or on their way home from work, and that is not seen as immoral. That's a very common thing in Japan and South Korea, right? So to answer Dan's question, what do you do about it? You can't do anything about it, because that's just ingrained in the daily life of everyday people, and that doesn't change. That's why there are still things like cannibalism. That's why there are still things like sweatshops in China. That's why people here in Mongolia disown their children if they like become a Christian, or even like marry a Kazakh, right? In America, you can marry who you want. You are free to marry who you want. When my wife met me, I was interrogated by her family to make sure I had zero Kazakh blood in my bloodline, because that is very, very taboo.
Okay, so
Right.
that would be a different culture of people.
Yeah,
Definition.
exactly. Yeah, and that's morality. It's moral to do these things here. It's moral to regulate marriages here. But in America, it's seen as immoral. It's seen as opposing freedom.
So yeah, and our subject, and welcome. Uh-oh, I lost your. I don't have your. Oh, scriptures in sandstone.
Scriptures and Stones. My name's
Oh,
Michael. I actually wrote my thesis on the topic of animal suffering in relation to Mark 5. So I'm well familiar with this topic.
Oh, very helpful. Yes.
Very cool. And so we got kind of on from the glory of, evidences of nature kind of showing, either designed or not designed. And then thank you, Claude, for bringing up the whole issue of morals. And if you didn't hear Michael, then Diamond Dave came in and said, that sounds like you're more into the cultural morality, or morality of individual morality. You seem to be more into like culture wise. A lot of people will be into individual morality, what they think is right or wrong. So I was having fun with Claude saying, you have such a stringent self morality. But Claude, what do you think of Diamond Dave and his morality, thinking it's a cannibal?
Well, he's right. He's right in that, and society has evolved over the years, and probably if you go back far enough, most of our ancestors were cannibals and practiced cannibalism in one way or another years ago. So things change, and you can't judge the morality of the past by the present. Most of us now would say it's wrong to keep slaves. I know the Bible doesn't, but most would say that's wrong. But 200 years ago, we could well have been, slave owners, or had slave owners in our families, and we would have thought nothing of it. So things do change. That's how morality comes about. It comes from changes in society. And so there we are. That's a bit of food for thought.
So, Michael, you got any comments so far on?
Okay, I won't say this is my favorite argument that I could put forward to this, but this is one that's in the philosophical literature. In response to, are you familiar with William Rowe and the burning deer, like the deer that suffers in the forest, natural evil? Claude? No.
Moses in the burning bush, I know that.
Okay, William Rowe was kind of like an atheist type, but he actually wrote an article about like a friendly atheism towards theists. But he puts forward an argument from animal suffering, where there's a deer that is on fire in the woods. It's a baby deer, and nothing good comes from it ecologically. It's just burnt to a crisp as slow as possible. And he says, well, this is evidence against God. However, he did eventually admit, after a guy named, I think, Stephen Wickstra wrote an article in response to William Rowe. I think Rowe was a professor at Purdue. I think he's retired now. And said that we shouldn't think that we're in to understand God's reasons if he had reasons. It's what's known as skeptical theism. Now, like I said, I don't think this is the best response. I'm more of a fan of rebel angel theodicies. I'm more of an old earth creationist than a young earth creationist, and a lot of us kind of lean that way. Not to say that a young earth creationist could put the rebel angel theodicy, where some of the natural evils are responsible from like Satan's fall or the Genesis 6 fall. But what would you say in response to, like, would we even be in a position to understand God's reasons as to why he would to allow certain animal sufferings? Maybe those reasons are beyond us.
That's just a convenient argument, isn't it?
I think that's a good point. But
Just
it is a
convenient
defense.
It's not really, because you can use that to excuse anything.
I agree that's a weakness of it. But
to be fair, Claude, you always say, well, you're not an expert. You follow the fallacy of authority and say, well, smarter people say evolution without God is true, so you believe it. So his argument is just as good as yours on the credibility of
David, evolution's a fact.
evolution.
Well, here's my thing, because like people like to throw around logical fallacies, but ultimately everything falls from many of them, right? Because people who claim the, like biblical authority, for instance, well, that's appeal to authority. That's a logical fallacy, right? But on the flip side, if I were to say, well, my doctor told me I should do this, that statement is also would fall under, by definition, the appeal to authority logical fallacy, which at some point, like, you can put everything under every logical fallacy and it just becomes ridiculous.
That is true, but there are some that are more. So like, and we know from experience that here, and Claude was probably wearing masks. And I was too, because I was with an elderly mother. And so it's like, I'm going to do it just because I'm not going to be the exception. And something happened to her. But, we've seen in the last few years that our highest intellectual scientists didn't know what they were doing. And so you're right, Dave, that some of this stuff is blowing smoke. And that's why I love our Proverbs Guys channel, because this is, we get in to discuss this stuff. We're all on this planet figuring out kind of what the purpose, where we're going, why we don't have purpose, whatever. And it's really cool. We all get to, in our society, make our own choices.
Now, I've never said that evolution proves there isn't a God. I mean, I don't think there's a God, but there could be, and God could have chosen evolution as the method which he changed. Things came about. Could have, but there's no proof of that. But what I do say is that evolution itself is a fact. And when I look at determining that, I don't just think about it myself, but I look at great experts in the field. And I prefer the evidence, not of someone who this channel likes, a guy who pretends to be a doctor, and whose greatest scientific achievement has been to flick rubber bands and fold paper airplanes. I ignore him, and I take the evidence of people like Francis Collins, who mapped the human genome. I think he knows a lot more.
They don't know Kent Hovind. Go after
we
me.
Do. Yeah, no. We
know
all,
who he is. Yes.
yeah. It's like I knew, like, before I joined this channel, Kent Hovind popped up in my feed, and we've talked about it. Like, you cannot be on this channel and not have heard of Kent Hovind.
I joke with Claude because he accuses me of being a fan of Kent Hovind, but I have no clue what Kent's doing. I haven't watched him for months, and I always ask Claude what he's going on. So Claude is one of Kent Hovind's biggest fans. But anyway, so it is
Hovind's Heroes is be a good show for you to star in.
Oh my goodness, that would be.
That would be good, because I'd be like somebody going, I'm at another prison camp, know nothing to do with you. But Claude, again, when you're saying evolution, and to do the terms correctly, we all see there is change, but you're actually saying that is 100% true.
Yeah. That
your chemicals have told you that we all can trace our origin back to pond scum.
I follow the experts in the field, many of them who've made major scientific discoveries, including the discovery of DNA, which now you use to argue for a common designer. But people who've done that, who've mapped the human genome, and they tell me, well, they tell everybody, that evolution is a fact. And evolution is a theory, just like gravity or germ theory is a theory too. It's the highest standard of scientific proof. Yeah.
I'm going to say this, and I might catch some flack here, but this is why I hate academics with a passion, because like the terminology is different. So like in academia, right, like in academic social circles, theory is used to prove, like, to demonstrate how something works. Like Claude said, the gravity, like the theory of gravity. The problem is the average person does not see it that way. The average person says, oh, it's a theory, and they use the term theory in the context of like, you know, the hypothesis. Like, I have a theory, it could be wrong, right? And so there's a disconnect between like people in academics who study these things and have their own jargon, and then when they present it to the public is going to naturally interpret it differently. Also, it's a little beef I have with the English language, because the English language, compared to like Mongolian, Japanese, or many other cultures, they don't have they don't have nearly, like, English doesn't have nearly as many descriptive words for this. I forget the terms, but my wife and I'm learning Mongolian, right? And there's a specific there are specific terms for like the theory of gravity, like how something works. But then theory, as in I have a theory that Dan is a Christian. I don't know Dan, but I have a theory. There's a completely separate word with a separate tone and intonation for that. But in English, there's just one word.
That people should say idea or hypothesis, but even hypothesis is better than just a guess or an idea. So yeah. I agree with you that there are differences, but I'm not too interested in the average person. I mean, half of the people in the world are below average, and why would I listen to them? So,
well, I think it matters. I think. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to push back on this. I think the average person is important, because it's the average person, and we see this in America specifically, where, I mean, let's compare America to like Asia. In Asia, there's great advancements here with technology and medical science and space exploration and satellite launchings, and these are average people who are going to university, who are funding it. They have a desire for this. In America, the average person wants to get on the internet and debate whether or not the earth is flat.
Yes.
So the average person does matter, because the average person votes, the average person spends money and invests in things that they deem are valuable to them. And we see the stark contrast where you go to Shenzhen or Chengdu and there are holograms, there are AI assisted like surgeons, right, with laser surgery for operations and things like that, because the average person wants to like study these things, and because the average person is connected with the academics of their country, they use the same language, they're on the same page. Whereas in America, the average person hears something from, you know, an academic or an expert in their field, as Claude says, they get confused and they're like, oh, well, the earth is flat and there's no such thing. I've seen people say airplanes aren't real in America. Okay. Right. Like the average person does matter.
Well, some of them even believe in contrails or chemtrails or whatever they call them. I mean, yeah, I shouldn't say they don't matter, but when it comes to making the determination in my own mind, I do tend to follow more and have a greater weight on the evidence. And by the way, evidence, Dan, just to get you grammatically correct, it's plural already, so you don't need to say evidences. That's something that a certain doctor says as well. Evidences. It's right. It's like saying I'm going to do my researches on sheeps. I'm going to do my research on sheep and see what evidence I find is the correct. So please, drives me crazy hearing the word evidence.
Did you understand what I was saying though, Claude? So your whole last minute was kind of an exercise in ignorance, because
No, it's an exercise in getting things right.
language. See, and that's the thing, is you're really, and this is where I have hope for you, because you're into truth. You're into like, oh, here's the way the word is, but then
It's not a
going
big deal. It just gets
to a big bad mama, Claude doesn't fall under the appeal to authority. Relying on an authority is acceptable and practical when the authority is a genuine expert. Now, does that mean the experts then can and are infallible?
no.
Okay,
You
so
know that, but
I do got to push back on that point, Dan. I've never heard an expert in science claim to be infallible. My anecdotal experience has always been that Jesus is infallible, or the Bible is infallible, or I guess, like, I've talked with Catholics, a pope is infallible, right? I've never heard an expert in like medical science claim to be infallible.
but that's where, and I think where you were saying about how the common person and then the intellectual, and sometimes, and we've gone through that with different different people that are really knowledgeable people, intellectuals, that they need to get grants. They need to, like, abiogenesis is a big one, that they're like, well, 3 or 5 years, we're going to figure out how life started from non-living chemicals. And, it's been 20 years later. And it's like, dude, you were blowing smoke because you were just trying to get grants or whatever. So
how else are they going to do science? How else
Well, exactly. Like, I mean, the reality is that these things require money, right? That's
no,
just the
totally get that.
reality of life. And I will say this to the credit of Christians. That's no different in my eyes than a Christian pastor going for money, because I mean, somebody's got to pay for the freaking light bulbs to stay on, right?
Well, there are a lot of,
I mean,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, there are a lot of pastors that won't bring up things they know from Bible study for fear of their congregations and the responses. So that it works both ways. I have to laugh at this whole thing, though, because I went to secular university, but half of my science professors were Christians. And it was a mix of everything. I had a chemistry professor that was young Earth. I had an astronomy professor that was intelligent design. And then I had ones that were atheists and Pastafarians. So I had the full gamut that way. So I think sometimes we make it too big of a deal about the funding thing, though I do have to admit it does come into play there. Back to the design topic, though, I think the strongest case can be actually made from physics, because the whole teleology in animals, you can look at an animal and one person's going to say it's designed and the other person's going to see the evidence of how it could have happened, through evolutionary processes. So that debate's kind of it's at a stalemate, basically. But the physics is where I think as Christians we can make the strongest case, specifically the fine-tuning of the universe. The fact that we have atoms at all is where you see even some atheists recognize that that's probably one of the stronger arguments. It doesn't prove anything, but the odds are definitely in our favor that way. Now, I know there's some modern responses to it. So the fact that we even have a universe to live in with atoms that could support life is a big deal.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something, because so for people who don't know me, I am Hindu, so I am a theist. I believe in a god. Specifically, I fall under the polytheistic sect of Shaktism. Look that up. Now, basically, that is an argument. Like, I wouldn't even say argument, like with someone who's an atheist and just lacks belief in a higher power. I would, or an intelligent designer. That is the route I would go down, because I'm very big into quantum physics, quantum mechanics, time, space, continuum, things like that, how time folds in on itself. And there's been a lot of evidence from even like just the entire gamut, as you said, of scientists, where the way physics works, the way particles work, the way atoms work, string theory, this is very similar to a holodeck inside Star Trek, right? That's the closest analogy that would make sense. And yeah, that's more of an argument I would take, because it's easily relatable, and I like to connect with people and get to know people and hear their stories. But I think also too, it's like we can demonstrate that for those of us who are sci-fi nerds, that the way that the universe works um, does show signs of an intelligent, not just an intelligent designer, but an intelligent system of maintenance. Because in order for the strings to vibrate, in order for the quarks to do their thing and the atoms to do their thing, there has to be a level of maintenance. Something has to impact them. They respond to external stimulus. Now, the question is, what is that stimulus? What holds it all together? Right? So that's, yeah, I do agree with that.
Claude, I got an oddball wild theory for you with animal suffering. This is one I read when I was doing my thesis research. William Dembski, he's an intelligent design person, if I remember correctly. He has a retrocausality argument that God basically set things up for the fall prior to the fall. It's kind of a crazy one, but if you want a wild one, there's a very interesting one there.
Well, I'll have to have a look at it. Dembski, is it?
Yeah, it's in his book, The End of Christianity, which is kind of,
I've heard of
he
his name,
admits he
yeah.
probably didn't pick a very good title on that one, because he's trying to defend Christianity, and I think he was trying to pick a clickbait title.
Yeah, William Dembski's he's known as a Christian, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure on the thing.
And you know, I put that clip up because I was a bit annoyed with Stephen and Achilles having a go at Cell.
Wait a minute. So back up.
You don't have to talk about that if you want.
I missed that. What was that?
You know how you commented on a clip that I put up?
Oh, yeah.
Where they had a go at Cell. You don't have to talk about that now if you don't want to, because you've got other guests on the panel. But I got annoyed about that. I thought it was a pity to shut Cell down.
I know, because he's a young
he's everything except he's had
a young Earth creationist that
his crime is to have a go at
as a biologist.
Yeah.
So you have to believe him then. You have to believe
No, I don't. No. He's a lesser one.
Well, I mean, just because he's this is where, and I want to jump in because this is where I think, and I'm going to give a lot of like benefit of the doubt here. This is where a lot of well-intentioned Christians, well-intentioned, thoughtful Christians make a mistake, is they assume that people with a different worldview than Christians on, like, say, evolution, they assume, oh, because someone has a title, you automatically believe him. And that's not the case.
No, that's the opposite, because Claude was just arguing that, he believes in godless evolution or a theistic deep time evolution because the experts say that, and was defending a guy.
But Claude also said he's open to other possibilities. He did also say he's open to a God existing, which indicates, and correct me if I'm wrong, Claude, but I kind of want to back you up here. But to me, that indicates that, okay, Claude will follow the experts and will listen to the experts, but if, like, it's not set in stone, right? So he's going to go where the evidence is, and just because someone is a title, that doesn't mean Claude is going to automatically be like, oh, this guy said this, he's correct. There can be zero alternatives.
Yeah, that is right. And in this particular case, I've chosen some real leaders in the field, and I sort of prefer their evidence. But all I was is defending Cell. Now, Cell does have qualifications, but he's an outlier. So if you say that 99.95% of the world's scientists believe or accept evolution, then you could say that Cell is an outlier. He doesn't. But I still respect his chance to have a say. And he got booted the other day from Proverbs show, and that's all I was annoyed about. I felt that wasn't fair.
Well, I'd watched most of it, and that was just right at the end. Sal had a lot of good stuff to say about young Earth creationism. He was an evolutionist. Then once he was educated and saw the microtechnology and the synthetic chemistry, or was he in biology? He is like, whoa, there has to be a designer. And then he went on, whoa, this young Earth makes more sense. Now here's a thing, and so here's what, and I don't care how smart you are, what kind of a genius you
Well, I'm
are
not.
or not.
But thank you for the confidence.
Well, I would, you're a smart guy. So here's just a little teeny piece of DNA, and so we know, of course, that DNA has the code, the instructions, and this is what 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's billions of these little connectors, the DNA parts that make up what we are. And so inside this are the directions to make proteins, right? We all know that. That's pretty well common biology. Now, unfortunately, though, it takes proteins to read the DNA to make proteins. It takes proteins to divide the DNA so that the cells can divide. So this is what I call the God of Darwin, or the gaps of Darwinism, because Darwin of the gaps is because, guys, it's you have that's an impossibility to have a billion characters DNA, but in life you need it read. This is nothing. This is just a book, and unless you read it, unless you get the design as somebody, I can get some architectural designs, and then as a builder I can do this. Well, the DNA is just the design, and the proteins have to come off of the design of the DNA, in the DNA. See the problem there? And I don't care what kind of a doctor you are, how many of a genius you are, if you're saying that the cause of this is better explained by chance, unguided processes, than a creator, I'm just thinking there's something deeper wrong in there.
Unguided processes. This is where it needs a proper evolutionary biologist to explain it to you. But of course, you listen. But to say unguided, I'm not sure. I've got to get my head around that myself. I mean,
that was from Robin.
Happens in responses. There are responses to different things. So, for example, if an animal is constantly getting beaten up because it's got a red nose, it might evolve over a period of time not to have a red nose. So whether you say that's unguided or not, I don't know. But a lot of things are done in response. Big Bad Mama would be better to explain some of these things, because I get
well, and I mean, I can see where I could see where Dan is coming from on this, and that's why I that's why I am what I am, because I do believe in an intelligent designer, and I mean the basic concepts of life coming from non-life and things like that. But I have a different take. Are we watching a video, or
I just had this up, and I'm gonna.
I can't see people's faces. I was
trying
confused.
to get rid of it.
Okay. But yeah, it's all good. I didn't want to interrupt if a video was playing, so that's all. My thing with animal suffering, and this is part of I've talked about this on other Proverbs Guys Ministries, is that I don't know if animals have the capacity to actually suffer. Yes, they can feel pain because they have a nervous system, but it's one of the things from the Hindu perspective that is a very big part of Hindu philosophy. It's right. It's like, can the human soul downgrade into an animal soul if it did not live, if you do not live a respectable life? And while there are many Hindus that agree with that, there are many Hindus like me that don't. Because if I cause suffering, in order for that karma to balance, I would have to suffer. But if I reincarnate as a snake, I perceive the world as a snake. So how could I suffer human actions, right? Human karma if I'm not a human. You see what I'm saying? And because the nervous system of and the brain capacity of animals is so different, I don't think animals can suffer. They can feel pain in that, oh my God, I'm being attacked. I need to get out of here. But suffering is deeper than that. It's wallowing in self pity. It's blaming oneself for one's actions. It's it's shaming oneself in many cases, right? There's a whole level of suffering humans have, and like that comes from a deeper awareness of their existence that I don't see animals having.
No, and I was trying to explain that to Claude, or just we had a conversation actually of saying that animals are innocent, and how could God create something that was going to be punished, and it's like those are all, and you said that very well, Dave, is that that's all human construct. We
Yes,
without
suffering is a construct.
yeah, and with that, and Claude, I know it's it's the thing. Oh well, we involved because humans now are better. But Claude, do you ever have things in your life? It's like, wow, I wish I was one of those billionaires that actually have power over people. You might be one of those billionaires. I don't know, but
You've found out my secret. Oh dear.
I was going to say, and I'm just going to be completely honest, if I was a billionaire, I would not be wasting my time with you people. Just saying.
But again, the whole thing to me as an atheist, non-atheist, but an atheist is like, I wonder why Claude even comes around too, because it's like he must be questioning. I don't know, whatever. But
I'm trying to save your soul from.
Well, and this is an interesting dynamic as someone outside of Christianity who comes on panels. It seems like Christians, and this is my anecdotal experience, but I've been on many different panels. And it's interesting that Christians are the only group of people I've ever encountered who are like, why are you here? You must be questioning your faith. When in reality, it's, you have an open panel and I want to meet new people.
Well, Claude's been, now I can say that with you.
Claude's
been here like 4 years. And
yeah, but I mean that's
likes me.
But I mean that's because that's what people do. People connect with each other, and that's now what YouTube has evolved into. And to me, it's just kind of interesting to see that Christians are the only group that'll have an open panel and then be surprised as to why non-Christians show up, and then on top of that be like, well, you must be questioning. I think that's a bold assumption to be
well
blunt.
that's just Claude, I'm not, how many years has it been, Claude? Maybe only a couple, but we go through this round and round, and it's again the purpose of life and morality, and we've got into that, and you're kind of new to the group, but that's why you're the new guinea pig to see. Oh, what do you believe? I'm really
well, yeah, and I mean, like, we could talk about you guys got a little taste on my view of like morality, because like, well, like, I mean, two things can be true at the same time, right? I mean, there can be there can be a level of objective morality for a society, but there can also be a level of, for society to function, like, do not kill people. Well, yeah, I mean, no society, I mean, look at Somalia. Everyone kills everybody, and they're just like, they can't get anywhere in life. You know what I mean? Right? But then there's levels of subjective morality where, like I mentioned earlier with Japan, is what Christians call adultery moral? Well, in some places it's immoral, right? In other places, yeah, you can go as a man or even as a woman, you can go to a massage parlor. Nobody cares. That's what they're there for. It's a part of the culture, right? It's not always an either or.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the the whole morals issue, which I find fascinating, because I tell people it's like, I've worked, I don't know if you've heard, it's called the Bohemian Grove. It's a rich club. And
I've heard about that.
and they're and most of what you hear on the internet is not true, but or at least is not there out in the open in front of 3,000 mostly Democrat people, workers. But when you look at that, and it's like, it'd be very, I work my butt off, I'm sore on this. It's like, but if there is really nothing after this, why wouldn't I go join up with those guys? I'm, you can probably tell, I'm a nice guy. I'm very people pleaser. I could have got in big with some of those billionaires, millionaires, and I'm sorry if there's nothing in this life besides darkness afterwards. And that's not you, Dave, because you have more of a theist thing. But if I was an atheist, I want to find that yacht I get to hang out on.
And I mean, here's the thing too. I mean, just because I have a theist thing, like mine is very different. Mine is very different than Christianity. You like can't really compare the two in many cases. Yeah. But it's like, let's say I'm wrong, right? Let's say that there is no reincarnation, and that's it.
Okay.
I will. Okay, so yeah, let's just pretend there's no God and that this is just it. What we believe to be the soul dissipates, and that's it. Why would I care? Because I'm incapable of caring because I don't exist, right? So a lot of these questions of like, what do we do if there's nothing? And the fear that there is nothing, in my opinion, because I like to study, I'm a science nerd, right? Right. And one of the things that I've seen in neurology, like the studies of the brain and parasite or psychology and things like that, is human beings, because we exist, we cannot comprehend what it is like to not exist. Right. And this is why many people who don't believe in a higher power will say, well, it was just like before you were born. None of us know what that's like because we can't comprehend what it's like to, not be born. We exist. It's a survival mechanism, right? And I think that's why there's a lot of people, especially in the Christian faith, who are, I've met quite a few people who at least claim to be Christians who are terrified. What if there is nothing after? Well, then what? Okay, you don't exist. Then what? Just take it logically. Then what happens?
No, exactly. Right? But my point is more on the temporal here. Why should I have a bad back when, if there's no purpose in this life except for being the survival?
Well, who says you have to? This? I mean, that's the thing. Who says you have to? Because there's plenty of holistic methods. I mean,
I'm talking about the atheist who this is it, and why would I want to work? Why wouldn't I want to be one of the top dogs? Why?
Because that goes back to the survival mechanism, right? Because we exist and all of us want to survive. Even people like, there's a lot of things I don't care about in life. And the fact that you can make the same argument for me. So what if I die? I'll just reincarnate. You know what I mean? Who cares, right? And I could say the same thing about Christians. Okay, you die and go to heaven. Why not just off yourself right now? Well, the reality is we enjoy being alive. We have friends, we have family, we have human connections. We all find value in this life. So just because there may be nothing after this life, that doesn't change the fact that we're alive now and there are things we enjoy about this life now. I think that's putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, yeah. My point is that in human life, without a God, atheistic wise, it's the little pyramid, and humans up here, and then we got the humans down here. And if there's no God, there's no purpose to love you, or in your religion, there's no reason to, try to help your clan, help your culture. Why don't you then be the top of the culture? If there is this life, eat, drink, be merry, and why would
a lot of people do that anyway. That's why I think like the loudest atheists on the internet are the minority, because the people who don't have faith in a God, they're not on the internet. They're out eating, they're out drinking, they're out being merry. I see that all the time here in Mongolia. 40% of Mongolians have no religious affiliation. They're not arguing with people on the internet. They're not looking for religion. They're going to the V28 lounge by my house or the Marseille pub and grill that's just down the road, and they're just having a good time. They're already doing that. They're already working to be the top dog in whatever that looks like to them, which is not necessarily a billionaire.
Let's bring in DC real quick, because I'm getting I've been asking, come on.
Yeah, I came on. I was going to talk about a bunch of other subjects. Then the subject matter changed quite a bit. So, but some of the things that I wanted to bring up that's been on my mind is, Christians looking at science approaches science differently than atheistic science looking at science, and so there's a heaviness on the side of the accepted science community, that they're dumping a lot of resources in. They get an enormous amount of taxpayer money to build up their argument that evolution in billions of years is true and factual, whereas the Christian community doesn't approach that side of things. We're not, maybe there is a few.
The Christian community gets huge tax breaks, so they shouldn't.
Yeah, they get.
That's not
huge tax breaks.
That's not the same thing, though.
Well, actually, it is, because there's especially with this administration, the Bush administration. I love how you brought up finance and accounting, because this is my field, and I could talk for hours about this. But to keep it short, they also get huge grants, not just tax breaks, but they also get huge grants and subsidies, etc. And there are many states, if you look at, there are many Christians, young earth creationists, old earth creationists in their states. They get a lot of state funding to promote that. And then now you're seeing the 10 Commandments being put in schools. And guess what? There's money being poured into that from the federal government, because statues of the 10 Commandments or teachers teaching the 10 Commandments, they don't pay themselves, right? So it's the same thing.
Well, it's not on volume. I'm not going to argue that they're not getting tax breaks and help with that. But the basis of the scientific community is 100% solely to prove scientific theory of billions of years in evolution. Whereas
to find out the truth. That's what science is about.
It's all indoctrinated into the evolution of theory. Not, yes, the U.S. Geological Survey and people, they get billions of dollars, and we can benefit by that are not atheists and billions of years people, right? But it's with the intention. I have been studying so much of geological stuff, and it's so much garbage that's put out there, and they're paid for it. Whereas someone like me, there's so many people like us that's not our main goal. Christians are believers of Jesus, not because of science, but because of the Bible, because of the upbringing. So it's not our number one priority to use our resources for that.
You've already decided. That's what you don't want.
Well, the thing about this too is when it comes to evolution, it's not geology, it's medical science, and they get huge amounts of money both ways, right? So, and that's something that everyone benefits from, because if you have a government that does not fund its own medical, institutions, you end up with some pretty bad things, right?
Right.
So, it's not just geology. It's across the board into many things.
Yes, but the other thing too is the effort of separation of church and state. You can't bring church into educational system, but yet, our children are indoctrinated by an atheistic view of billions of years and evolution. And so there is a lopsided,
indoctrinated by facts.
No, it's not.
Here's the thing. When it comes to separation in church of state, I went to high school in the 2000s, and there were Christian groups, after school groups, there was See You at the Pole, where, for those of you who don't know, See You at the Pole is where a bunch of people, a bunch of Christian kids gather around once a year to pray around their flagpole from their school. This was in the 2000s in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Very, very blue liberal place. More, I would argue, more blue than some parts of California. Okay. Right. So you can bring religion into schools. The only thing about the separation of church and state is that the teacher cannot teach a specific religion of any kind, but that does not prohibit. And this is why a bunch of people who prayed at their school or did See You at the Pole or had after school groups, that's why they're winning all these court cases, because people are like, oh, separation of church and state. And then the Supreme Court saying, no, that's not how that works. You can have Christian after school groups. You can bring religion into the schools. You just can't actively promote it. Ironically, with the current administration, there are 10 commandments going up in schools now as we speak. Right.
So, which actually, you look at it though, with that argument, is that we got the 10 commandments on the Supreme Court. We have prayer.
Well, yeah, but I mean that just reinforces my point. That just reinforces my point. This is where I push back on DC a little bit, because you can't claim separation of church and state when all these groups existed even back 20 plus years ago. On top of now, you're putting a religious document, the 10 Commandments, which is not universally recognized, into an education system, right? Separation of church and state is very, very specific, but I mean, it just doesn't apply to what DC is saying.
But it's not apples to apples. You're talking about a small thing. Yes, it's been a fight back and forth, but there's a reason why people think that the Earth is billions of years old, and that's factual, because they've been lied to by lying scientists. Radiometric dating is not accurate. There's so many assumptions built into it, but yet people think it's accurate. Hold up. Let me speak. I'm always interrupted. Let me speak.
Get a drink.
Let me speak. Stop interrupting me. It's 5 seconds and I get interrupted. The problem is even carbon dating is flawed. We can always point out flaws in evolution. We can point out flaws in the radiometric dating by isotopes. We can point out these flaws, but yet you and so many other people take it as factual information. No one has ever in the history of mankind ever observed billions of years. That right there disqualifies it for ever being scientific, factual, that the Earth is billions of years old. That is a scientific requirement. The next is to be able to repeat it. It's never been repeated.
Well, and here's the thing too, is because
Claude wanted to speak, and then
it's not worth replying to.
Okay, Michael.
Well, I was just going to say no human on the earth has visibly seen thousands of years either. So by your logic, Earth doesn't exist.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, see, you can have a hypothesis and a theory, but call it a hypothesis and a theory. You know, creationists are hypothesizing.
We actually talked about that earlier. We actually talked about the theory earlier.
Yep, but young Earth creationists are hypothesizing and saying, based off the evidence, we see that it's most logically that the Earth is young. But scientists make this claim and they brainwash everybody in thinking it's factual information when it's not. It's a hypothesis or a theory.
It's a theory.
Hold on a second. I have a see. This is an issue I have.
Mike will be next then.
Yeah. This is an issue I have, and this is why I can never take Christians fully seriously. Is because now I like you, DC, but at the same time, the way you're wording it implies malicious intent, right? They are lying scientists. If I were to come to lie to you, I have to intend to lie to you. And so, yeah, you said lying scientist. You also said brainwashing. Brainwashing requires intent. You and I know this because you and I.
Brainwashing doesn't require intent. What?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Me and you both were Mormons, right? So we understand this. We were brainwashed, and we thought it was
We were
true.
brainwashed. We were brainwashed by
Two
people
morons.
who intended to take our money, to put us into a box. We were brainwashed into and conditioned into living a specific life. And we were brainwashed literally to shun people who left the church. This is intentional because these are in conference talks. There are even recent conference talks where people, where like Elder Holland, when he was still alive, as well as other people, would warn us to stay away from anti-Mormon literature. That's not an accident. He didn't just wake up one day and just start rambling about his things. He woke up, he put on his suit, he thought of how he was going to word it, and he intended to warn us to stay away from anti-Mormon literature. All of that.
I agree with that. There's
So-
intention of Mormonism, but I know my parents didn't have intention to deceive me by lying to me when I was a kid. They honestly believed the lie.
Well, here's the thing. Then it's not a lie. And this might be a semantic argument, and I'm fully open to being yelled at for this being a semantic argument, but lying is intentional. Being confused or being under a wrong impression is different. I can accept that there are scientists who use carbon dating and all these different things who have the wrong impression. I can accept that. They may have they may be starting from the wrong place, and that's fine. But once people say this person is lying to you, this person is brainwashing you, that's where I have an issue. Because if I say something, even about my own faith, and I start at the wrong place, I come to a wrong conclusion and I'm wrong. Well, I'm not intending to lie to you. I'm not lying to you. I just have a false assumption. That is completely different. Even by the definition.
I'll concede halfway on that, Dave. You make a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mike, do you have anything to add? I know
Yes.
you're.
Because I've studied
Yeah,
the philosophy of
here.
science, and this is where both Christians and non-Christians would benefit from reading some of the philosophers of science. We've actually moved way beyond the positivists who thought that science actually discovered facts. You had Karl Popper, who came along and developed the idea of science falsifies things, that a scientific theory, it can only be corroborated. It can never be proved. You do experiments. If it gets the right answer, great, but you need to have some experiment that says that if I get this answer, then I'm wrong. The problem with that is that if you're clever enough, you can kind of think of a way to save it through an ad hoc addition to theories. And this is where we get into the debate between two philosophers of science. And a lot of creationists, especially young earth creationists, will kind of tend to go more to one of them than the other. A lot of your more secular scientists will kind of lean more to the other. But one of them is Thomas Kuhn, and the other one's Emery Lakatos. Kuhn thought that you could have paradigm shifts within the science, but it was kind of like switching sports teams. It was an irrational decision. And this lends well to the worldview argument. I see the world this way, somebody else sees it that way. The other one's Emery Lakatos, who thinks you can have competing, he calls them research programs. We can kind of think of them as competing theories. Like a good example would be geocentrism versus heliocentrism, or plate tectonics versus the geosyncline theory that came before it. And he thinks that it's okay for these to compete, but the one, he's got some nuances in this. He thinks you can only really tell in retrospect. He doesn't think you can tell at one time. He thinks that if it's predicting getting the right answers, it's progressive theory, it's pragmatic. But if it consistently gets the wrong ones and we're having to explain away things, it's degenerative. And so he would say that in retrospect, we can compare them. And then there are other ones too. There's Paul Feyerabend, who thinks that there is no method. He's kind of a radical. A lot of scientists will kind of lean towards Lakatos, though there are some problems with that. But in all of those cases, science is more of just pragmatic, getting us the right answers, and we're not guaranteeing it as a true thing. We're just probabilistic, and this is what we think based on the empirical evidence at the time and the prevailing theory, though our theory could be wrong and subject to change in the future.
Yeah, for me, I just, my issue is I have no problem with someone hypothesizing or making a theory, because really it all comes down to interpreting the data, what makes most sense, right? But the problem I've got with that is, as Christians, we get attacked all the time by people saying evolution is a proven fact. That's where the problem is when science does interpret their data, it's never presented as a hypothesis or theory. Yes, you can write it down and they'll obscure it somewhere in there that the theory, of evolution, blah, blah, blah. But people around the world don't receive it that way. And so when young earth creationists are climbing up a hill because it's not our main goal of the reason why we're believers, we're fighting, it's David against Goliath type situation. And so we have to battle this. Well, it's proven, evolution is proven fact, when no, it's not, because I can't remember what it was. I was on a show last night on this channel, and the abiogenesis is being removed from evolutionists as believing abiogenesis is evolution. And my first introduction that the abiogenesis has nothing to do with evolution, Diamond Dave, you'll know, was from Colby Redditch. He blindsided me a while ago when he said that a month or two ago to me. And I'm like, I had never heard of that. Like, why is there a disconnect from abiogenesis and him claiming that it has nothing to do with evolution, right? And so that blindsided me. Is like, what do you mean? If you can't get life from non-life, then it doesn't matter where you start down an existing chain. But that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, Big Bad Mama actually brings up a point that I was thinking about because of what you said about lying scientists, right? Big Bad Mama says no one says the evolution is proven. Proof is in mathematics and science. I think this is just like what you were saying. You get attacked all the time by saying people are, saying it's a proven fact. Now, what I'm wondering is if it's just a disconnect in how people word things, because we talked about this earlier, like my issues with how academics use words. They use it in a different context than how like average everyday people use it. And so I'm wondering if we're all kind of like beating a dead horse here, because thinking about what you said, like you didn't mean that the scientists are intentionally lying or intentionally brainwashing, but that's just kind of how it came out, right?
Correct.
So you mean it that way, but I interpreted that way because of the words that were being used. So I think part of the issue that all of us are having here is like we aren't fully clear on the definitions of some words, or we're taking it in a different way.
You need to make you need to make a distinction between science and what is it? Oh,
I was just going to say we need to make a dictionary for all of us so we can all be on the same page.
Especially in Mormonism. Sorry.
Well, yeah, because it's like I understand both contexts of like theory, right? There's the academic theory, which is a demonstration of how something works. But like now, like, as just a common person, I have a theory my wife is asleep right now. She is at home across the street. I actually don't know, but my theory is because she's tired, she's sleeping. Both of these are technically grammatically correct, yet they mean two different things.
In the philosophical literature, there are two terms that I think would benefit our discussion here. There's science and scientism. Science is just the way of knowing, the methodological empiricism of developing a scientific model and testing it through experiments. Scientism is the idea that science is the best or the only way of knowing. So there are many scientists that are not scientism, adherents, and then there are people that are scientism. So the difference between science and scientism is an important distinction to make here, because you have your theistic scientists that would say, I can know things through spiritual experience or through special revelation as well. So if you view science as one way of knowing, not the only way of knowing, it kind of helps out in this discussion.
Yeah,
That's totally
To go with that
Where-
is the same with when a Christian says that, you know, evolution is not proven, right? And we go down this anti-evolution path. Those that believe in evolution, like I mentioned Colby Reddish before, is he's saying yes, we've seen it in a lab. Again, it goes back to a difference in definition, because when a Christian says evolution is not true, we're not talking about microevolution that you can see adaptation through mutations in a lab. We're talking about leaping from non-life to life, or leaping from species to species. And so again, there does create that confusion between them.
Evolution doesn't cover non-life to life. How many times do people have to be told that? That is abiogenesis. Evolution does not cover the creation of life itself in the first instance. Never has.
Yeah, and that's
This is
something
a
I
sort
do.
of-
That's
sort
something
of
I will agree with
non-scholarly,
Claude
yeah.
on, just because I mean I do believe in evolution, but I've never ever heard of anyone who believes in evolution, whether they be theistic or, you know, a scientist. I've never heard them claim that.
Can I ask you a question then? Because that's not my experience. The
Sure.
whole idea of evolution, to probably 99% of the world, especially those that aren't into this, you know, that has any idea what abiogenesis is, the idea of a primordial soup gives way to living organisms, that gives way to dividing and growing into all of the species we have now, right? So if abiogenesis has never had anything to do with the theory of evolution, then I'm confused, because if God doesn't exist and it came from that primordial soup, then why is there a gap from non-life to life that's not included in evolution? Because I've only heard of this in the last 45 days.
Yeah, so my experience, having lived in other countries, and just traveling around and talking with people of all worldviews, like evolution, right, is about observable life from the since life was on this planet. I have never heard anyone talk about like cosmology outside of that, because that's separate. Right. So evolution, my understanding of it and what I hear, especially here in Asia, it's based around life on this planet and how life evolved on this planet specifically, but does not make a claim as to how the planet got here in the first place. That is my
so we're close to Berkeley. My daughter went there, so
Mhm.
I use that a lot of times. And there is, broader evolution, cosmic evolution. The abiogenesis is part. It'd be like saying, "Wow, you've got a 2026 whatever car of your liking, or space shuttle, or whatever you're talking about," and like, oh, but we don't know how a combustion engine or a jet engine. We have no clue how to no. So it's kind of ingenuous to say,
well, that's
oh,
hold on, that's false equivalency, because a jet engine is an inanimate object that is not comprised of living cells that mutate and adapt. So
well, I'll push back on you with that, Dave, because that makes it more complex.
No, it doesn't.
So
it really doesn't, because I mean, life is more complex than non-life. So, and this is what going back to the, my position of the average person, that's what gets people to shut down, because like I had cancer growing in my body and I didn't know it. Like I've had cancer, right? And that's because the cells mutated and adapted on their own. But when it comes to metals, you have to physically forge it, right? So steel is an alloy. Steel does not become steel, because the particles adapt into being steel. You have to forge it. Whereas the cells in my body adapted by itself. So that's not a one-for-one comparison. And that's
I wasn't comparing. I wasn't comparing the thing of metal or mechanic. I'm just saying that if somebody has whatever car, a Ferrari out in the driveway, I'm not saying about how, nothing to do with evolution, but the thing of saying that abiogenesis doesn't have to do with evolution is like saying a car, not the evolution of it, not the building of it, but if you have I have a Ferrari out in the driveway, but there's no such thing as combustion engine. You see my point? It has nothing to do with the, natural, because the natural stuff is more complex than the metal, than the non-living. So that's what I'm saying, is that to argue that, well, we don't need abiogenesis, when the problem is, and that's
Well, it's
why
not a matter of arguing we don't need it. I'm not sure what goes on in like Western universities, but I do agree with DC to a point that like Western universities. Am I interrupting a video or?
no, sorry, I had this, I think I was having this played in the corner. Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
But
yeah, so it's like, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so like Western universities in the West do get paid to push an agenda, and that could be the disconnect here. Like DC's seen it, I've seen it, even in accounting and finance, they get paid to push an agenda. Whereas in 99% of the world, they don't. And so that's probably the disconnect, because I've never heard of abiogenesis when I was living in India. I've never heard anyone talk about it here in Mongolia or China. I've talked a bit about it with my wife, and she didn't understand any of it, but she asked some friends back in Japan who are in the field of science. They've never even heard of abiogenesis, and they come from like the University of like Tokyo and very prestigious scientific schools. They've never even heard of it. So yeah, I think it's I do think it's kind of interesting that you say we don't need abiogenesis, because from my anecdotal travels, like it's never been involved in the concept of evolution ever. So maybe it's just an American thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
We should ask Big Bad Mom in the comments, because he's more into that. But again, evolution says that there was a time when there was no life. The life started. That's called how chemicals.
Who says evolution said there was a time when there was no life? Who said that?
I've never heard of that.
No, you don't make stuff up there.
Well, hold on, yeah. Claude, I got to push back on that. I don't think he's making stuff up. I think he's talking about his experience. I'm just saying talk about his experience, because
it's impossible to have a discussion, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of is, but I mean, like you and I, like I think you and I can get on the same page of that. Like we care about truth and we want to get clear. And
wait a minute, what did you think I said that was wrong? I might have misspoke.
You said evolution said there was. I have to get
that there was nothing. Evolution.
Yeah. No. And it's never done that. It starts from when life starts. We don't know how life starts. You do. Your God did it, and according to which God you believe. But science doesn't.
Yeah, science doesn't make the claim of how life started, from what I've seen anyway.
No. They're interested to know, of course. It'd be fantastic to know. But just because there isn't a scientific answer doesn't mean, Thor did it, or Christian.
Well, yeah, and I can get on board. I can get on board with that. But I think, like, I will say, just kind of from Dan's perspective, like growing up in, like, because I spent a lot of my life in the U.S. and it's that mentality, that belief that evolution says that is a thing in America.
Oh yes.
Right. And so since he's an American in America, I can understand why he starts with that position, because in America, that's like all you hear. Are you in America, out of curiosity?
No. I'm in Singapore at the moment.
Oh, you're in Singapore? Okay. My sister-in-law lives there with her fiance. Cool.
And at the moment, I'm traveling about. I'm in Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. I think we're dealing with just kind of like an American-only thing, honestly.
In Europe, this wouldn't even be a discussion, but because of the tenets towards a lot of fundamental Christians. But there again, there are Christians like Francis Collins who mapped the human genome. There's some very brilliant Christians in the States.
I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time hearing you. It's really quiet.
Sorry. Is that
That's better. Yeah, that's
better.
Thank you.
There are Christians in the States who are very intelligent too. One of the greatest scientists there, Francis Collins, he mapped the human genome, and he's a Christian. So there you go.
Yeah, I think you'll find if you go to America, I think you will find that science in general is not at the forefront of daily life.
You can make an argument that without Christianity, you wouldn't have science develop in Europe, because the original idea was that you were there was regularity in the universe, and that you were kind of thinking God's thoughts after him, which is why they thought you could have faith in the natural laws.
Greece and Rome had their own form of science, and then that wouldn't account for out here in Asia, where like the Bhagavad Gita, because I'm Hindu, like we have quantum physics, we have cosmology, there's the tracing of the stars, right? Like you don't need Christianity to have science develop. Ancient Egypt had surgery. They had neurosurgery.
I mean, as a methodological, philosophy of investigation. I'm not saying technology in general, because people are smart.
Sure.
And you could even make the case. You could say that Aristotle maybe got it going, but Christianity kind of adopted Platonism early on, and then the realm of the forms, perfect forms, but then applied that to God. But you had people like Sir Francis Bacon and Isaac Newton, but the idea was you were thinking God's thoughts after him. Now, this does bring up an interesting thing related to evolution. Are any of you guys familiar with the Christian philosopher Alvin Plantinga?
No.
Okay, he has an interesting argument called the evolutionary argument against naturalism. Now, it's been a while since I've read it, so I hope I do it justice here. But something along the lines, if I remember correctly, if our senses just evolved for survival value, then we wouldn't have any guarantee that they're true, what we derive from our senses. And of course, science is empirical and relies on sense data or extensions from that. Now, you could make the counter argument that they're good enough, but then things like our moral sensibilities would just be for survival value and not be objective. And then that can kind of go back to the moral argument. If we're going to have objective moral values, then we need God, or there are some atheist counter arguments like a Platonic world of moral forms. There's a guy named Eric Weilenberg that makes that argument. But anyway, how do you get past these evolutionary debunking arguments that all our sense data, all our perception is just survival illusions or hallucinations and not actually real?
So I guess I'm not clear on the last point. How do we get past debunking evolution if none of
How
it's
do we know
real?
that what we think and our perception of reality is actually real rather than just what benefits us for survival?
Well, and I mean, here's the thing. I think it could be both, because I mean, technically we exist, but even if nothing was fully real, if this is all an illusion, we share the same illusion and therefore have to survive in that illusion. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier, like the holodeck in Star Trek, right? Like the holodeck in Star Trek, you can have the safeties off, right? So in a Star Trek holodeck, you can like have a Borg invasion. Is it real? Well, no, but you could still die in it if you don't like defend yourself, right?
This is where I think that consciousness is probably the best evidence for God, period, because it's the hardest thing to explain with evolution.
I can agree with that. It's just a question of whether or not the physical is real or if the physical actually matters. And that's something I can go either way on.
I just think, maybe this is actually a great conversation of having is it possible to have a fair conversation between the two? Because in all reality, it is a hypothesis or a theory of evolution wherever life did begin, whether it, it was God or not. So on the scientific community, it's a theory and a hypothesis, and they're building their claim based off the evidence they see. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that, even if it's wrong, right? And the same can be applied to those that are Christians, believing that the Bible is literal, and that we take that seriously, which is we're building our hypothesis based off the facts and the information we receive too. Equally, both sides is conceding to Dave earlier, right? Is maybe it's not intentional lying on either side, but based off the evidence that each of us side and both sides that come to our own conclusions based off our evidence. But maybe it's this better way that we can create a harmony between the two, and accept that people aren't going to believe what Christians believe with the Bible, and Christians aren't going to believe what scientists say. But can we co-equally exist, and then let the evidence over the years, be the determining factor of who believes what in a fair system.
So what's your
not sided one way or the other at different times. Before science came around and Darwin theory, the majority of the world believed in the Bible and as literal. And then those
not
theories
the majority of the world, not the majority of the world.
Okay, well. Yeah,
the majority of Europe.
You get what my point is. You get what my
yeah.
point is. I was just making a point that it was not always even, where biblical Christians are heavier at times to influence, and then science heavily at other times. But coming in the middle of where we can respect each other's beliefs, because not everybody's going to believe either one side.
I have two responses to that. The first of all is, I think we're modeling that conversation now pretty decently. But when it comes to people in general are tribal. They pick a side, and then they will die on that hill, because that's just how humans are. You have your group, you have the group that has its particular beliefs, and so you just always take their side. That's just how people are.
That's true, because I can tell you right now, I'll die on the hill that I know that the Bible is true and that God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days.
But the second thing...
But scientists will say the same thing, because they're looking at the scientific evidence in their models saying the exact same thing to them.
Yeah. Now, the second thing I want to get to is there is going to be a difference and a disconnect, because Christians have the Great Commission. Christians are told to go and proselyte and to spread the good news, as well as influence the culture. Science doesn't actually do this. Science has no impact. Like right now, we're sitting here talking about, evolution and whether or not it's true. That doesn't, that discussion, right? Scientists saying evolution is true. What's going on the screen? Is there a video? Should I shut up?
Oh, that's just me again.
Okay.
Am I back?
You're back.
You're back. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
So,
yeah, my son kicked over the...
But to go along with that...
But let me finish my point quick. The second thing is Christians, and you see this all the time, where Christian pastors are talking about to influence the culture. So it's not just a discussion, because scientists here in Asia that preach evolution, they're not preaching a specific worldview. They're not preaching a specific religion. They're not preaching a specific ideology. They're not trying to get people to vote or to have Christian morals or norms, but Christians do. And so I think that's the disconnect.
It's not teaching evolution in billions of years the same thing, just maybe not quite so.
No, because well, here's the thing. Teaching, I'm Hindu. So for me, if I'm wrong, and it's not billions of years, it's only thousands of years of Earth. That doesn't change anything. It doesn't mean I have to stop being Hindu. Scientists don't, scientists don't put forth morality like Christians do, right? So when we talk about Christians and non-Christians discussing abio, like Genesis, for instance, for evolution, I'm not just going to get a conversation on, whether or not evolution is true. We've seen this earlier in the show. We're going to discuss morality. We're going to discuss whether or not the Bible is true. And by doing so, we end up at the next logical point, whether or not the Bible is true, is Jesus the Son of God? Right? So with Christianity and talking about this, we're getting a lot more here than what science does. Because science sticks to one.
I think a lot of that's due to the apologetics. Organizations rely on the transcendental argument popularized by Greg Bahnsen and Van Til, which is you've got to take it as a comprehensive worldview. I think Bahnsen's quote is the whole enchilada type thing. That's not the only way to do apologetics. There's also evidential apologetics and things like that. I had something I was going to say in regards to this. The thing you were talking about earlier. I just lost.
Well, and just a chance for me to say goodbye. I have to go, so it's been nice to chat.
Have a good one.
And sometime, Dan, I would like to talk about the treatment of Cell by the Proverbs guy host the other day, because I thought it was unacceptable. So,
all right, I remember it now. DC, are you?
Okay.
Oh yeah. Goodbye. I'm glad to talk.
Yeah,
to you.
thanks for
Duly
dropping.
noted.
I like
Claude.
Claude. Claude is cool.
DC.
Oh, he is. That's why I let him on. But again, Claude. Just a minute, second. I'll say bye to Claude and Claude. Your vote has been duly noted, and
well, you
Oh,
also
well.
have you
So
do
anyway.
have TTOR on, and he's said exactly the same thing. So what I want to know, you can find out the answer why Cell got booted for saying things about the Hoven Hero business, and TTOR not only is on but is the host. So you can tell me that for next time, or you can leave it in a comment. Thank you.
well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now. I don't care. We have different hosts on this channel.
Well, I'm
and,
trying to get to the
we've had
to the reasoning behind it. Why one is allowed to criticize Kent and the other isn't.
I will say, because I've talked with Stephen and after the
Is
show about this, Sal has done other things. That's
Right.
all I can
Well, he
say.
needs to say it, because Sal
That's
didn't claim
my-
false qualifications. Sal told the qualifications he had, and that's not right to falsely accuse someone of saying they. I mean, we know who's got a false doctorate, and it's not Sal. Anyway, I'll say goodbye
Yeah,
in the meantime.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
And then thank you, Claude. Duly noted. There was history between those two, I believe, but I don't really care. Main thing
Well,
is
you're a
you
Christian.
believe in and you believe and are defending a young Earth creationist. Okay, I think so.
Okay.
You whoever was talking.
Yeah, I was going to
go
ask
for it more.
DC. Have you ever heard of the new creationists such as Marcus Ross and Todd Wood?
No, does not sound familiar.
Okay, Marcus Ross was a former professor at Liberty University. I think he makes his living now selling Christian educational materials, and he's a paleontologist, I believe. I think Todd Wood's a biologist. I don't remember specifically, but the way they're different, they take a slightly different take than your average young Earth creationist, and this is why they're called new creationists, kind of similar to like the new atheist of back, like Dawkins in 2006 and all that. Their perspective is, let's look at all the scientific evidence, let's make our case, and even if our case doesn't have the empirical support right now, prevailing scientific theory mainstream, let's just stay the course, do the grunt work, do the studies. We're going to trust the Bible on it, but we're going to say the weakness is, here's what doesn't align with our model, here's where our model might be able to make some inroads, and basically they're intellectually honest. They hold their position and they hold it as from special revelation, but they don't overstate their case. And I think what frustrates a lot of atheists sometimes, and atheists are guilty of this too, I'm not saying you've got your atheists like Dawkins that overstate their case, but a lot of creationists will overstate their case and not be able to argue the other side in its strongest. We argue against a straw man sometimes, and I think that maybe that's what like Marcus Ross said. They call things both ways, good for them or not good for them.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because one of the things is I've actually been on a walk with God, and so I've been isolated away from the world This is why I know for a fact God lives, is I don't have to question it. But the thing is, during my journey and my walk with him for several years, being away from all of this apologetic creation channels, I was coming up with questions and problems that the standard geologic teaching doesn't work. And when I come across that was introduced to me through this channel just recently, the hydroplate theory, the thing I loved about that, different than some other creationists, is it literally answered the exact questions I had. And I had assumed, I had built a model that there has to be a certain mechanism to perform this specific way for this geological feature to take place. And then when I discovered the hydroplate theory, it was exactly describing what I had a problem with and what I thought the solution would be with. Now, does that solve 100% of everything? No, I don't think it does. To me, overwhelmingly, it does. But as with scientists in non-create or young Earth creationists, I believe that creation science and creation defenders need to follow the same rule. If we hold on to something because it sounds great, even though it might not fit the model, that is an error that young Earth creationists need to solve. If there's scientific evidence of any sort, geological evidence that doesn't support that, we need to abandon that, because it does nobody any good to hold on to something when it's proven wrong, right? And so I agree with you with that. Is let the facts take it where it is. And I grew up in Mormonism and went through many other things, and so I feel like I've let go of more lies than anyone else I know, because better information came along, and facts actually were overwhelming to disprove something I had believed before. So I let that go. And I think anyone on Earth, wherever your belief system is when scientific fact or something that is proven to be fact, it is undeniable, then don't deny that just to hold on to a ideology that sounds good. So I think our time's about up. We were given 5 minutes, but yeah, I love the theory. I love the discussion. And in fact, I was going to mention, just to end with, there's a geologist by the name of Myron Cook. He is an old Earth creationist, talks about billions of years, and I can't get enough of his videos. I think he's an amazing guy, despite I think the descriptions don't work in my view. I have an enormous amount of respect for that guy, and I'm learning a lot from him, even though I have difference in view. And so even though there's a difference in that, and I don't agree with some of the interpretations based off the millions of years of erosion and mountain building, we can learn from people like that, even in different views, right? So it's not always a black and white, cut this person off because he's different than me. We can learn a lot from people that we can even disagree with. And in fact, this channel is doing that. We're having discussions with people all over the world with different views. And, like the conversation with Dave is it brought to awareness that maybe I just need to change my language and not call a scientist a liar, even though in my opinion, he's lying, but he's not intentionally doing that. He's giving the best explanation based off the information he has, which might not make him an intentional deceiver. So, we can concede, and it's okay to concede. In fact, it's better to concede to, to something that isn't quite right.
And my point with that wasn't so much to come against you, it was more to come against the argument in general, because there are many Christians who I've heard in my anecdotal experience, they do believe all scientists are liars. They do believe all doctors are lying to you, and anyone who goes to college is brainwashed and yada, yada, yada. All right. And so my point is that argument first of all, that argument just isn't true, and I don't know why people cling to it in the first place. But the second of all is, if you want to convince me that what you say is right, you have to be more, I wouldn't say concise, because that's something everyone is working on, but I think just to be more intellectually honest, right? Not all doctors are liars, not all scientists are liars. Could they be operating from a false premise and not know it? Absolutely. Human beings do it all the time. That doesn't mean that they're lying or deceiving or they're trying to like. I'm sure there are some people are somewhere, right? But to
There
say
always is on all sides.
exactly, but to say it across the board, that just shuts people off because it's
Well,
like,
and that's why I wanted to bring up this Myron Cook guy, right? Is I can tell you right now, he is not lying. Like he, he has very good arguments to support what he is presenting in his videos. He is definitely not intentionally out there trying to deceive anybody. He's out there intentionally trying to give a great explanation of the geological observations that he has and applying his knowledge through his understanding to present that. And I'm kind of learning and growing. When we come out of Mormonism, we kind of come out like we mentioned before, swinging and swinging a bat and just happen to fight our way out. But once you do get out, like for me, I've had to learn how to kind of change and not be so brutal. And so it is.
Yeah, and I mean that just kind of it is what it is, and I mean other people too, and I mean I'm sure some of the scientists they get dogged on too when like they're just doing their jobs. You know what I mean? You know, people, Christians and other people beat on the doctors or they beat on the scientists and they're like, I just want to help people. Why are you yelling at me? You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. So
that position in general doesn't serve anything. And ironically, if you want to go deeper into you're like what this channel's about is ministry is Achilles brought this up before, but I mean the gospel is supposed to be good news, right? So if you're starting the gospel discussion from the perspective of discussing whatever, like say evolution, well, if you treat people like garbage on evolution, they're not going to stick around to see what you think about the Bible. You know what I mean? Not. They're just gonna be like, "Oh, okay, you're an asshole. You're a prick."
Right, yeah.
And then they're just gonna be like, "Oh, well, whatever." And then they'll tune you out, and then they'll go on. And then I would argue you miss an opportunity to do that ministry because once you lose a person, you can't get them back.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. I think we're here at the end. Dave, you hear? I probably am going to be debating our good friend Robert Gurr.
Oh boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How
so
fun.
that's being set up. That's being set up. So it looks like that might be a future thing. So that'll be quite interesting.
He's really nice and knowledgeable on Mormonism. I would imagine you could equal his knowledge on Mormonism. And yeah, it is, again, why I am open to different thought while I have people on, because I think one of the problems, and like you were saying, Dave, is that, we're going to die on hills. And sometimes those aren't that that good of real estate to die on. And that's why with, my show here, it's like, we can talk the philosophy of evolution, of this, of that. This Harvard cell animation I had on, that's inside a billion cells that are dividing in our bodies, and to say the mechanism for getting to there was random mutations or mutations in certain areas is like, guys, you're talking to trillions and trillions and trillions of differences of DNA. So and that's just the evidence. That's just the evidence there, and you might believe that happened by chance, and that's great. But this, to me, cries more than that. And so when you look at that, and to clarify, when I said biology, and everybody in biology thinks that life isn't eternal, that life started. And so then to have that foundation, the foundation of biology is lifeless chemicals coming around to living organisms. And then, so that's the thing here is I don't care how many doctorates you have. And we know that, this is, if evolution originated, but even the scientists are saying you have to make life, you have to have 200 or so proteins. You have to have something living in its environment. You have to have some kind of shell to keep that life contained. And so that's where, Claude, and I wish he was still here, is that, oh, well, evolution is fact. It's like, no, because you've got to answer these questions before it's fact. And you mentioned earlier, and one other thing I was hearing is about the 1,000 years or billions of years. Now we can all say, because there was a yesterday, there was time before today. Now then to say, how many was there? A trillion years before today, a trillion years before this year, a trillion years. So there has to be all of that is just evidence. And with any of the what you were saying, DC, is that all that evidence we have for time, how much time is not in concrete. And so there is, for somebody like Claude to come in, it's like, it's fact because scientists say it. It's
that's where my issue's been is it a strong case based off the tools and mechanisms they use to express billions of years? Yeah, it's a strong case. But we don't hear it that way. We don't hear that radiometric dating is a hypothesis or a theory. It is given as absolute fact because we know for a fact that the rate of decay of, let's say our potassium argon gas is exactly this. And that's where the disingenuous, I'll change my language. Thank you, Dave. Is where it's just maybe they're just not intentionally being deceptive, but when that assumptions are built into that model, then no, it cannot be facts. You don't know the quantity of parent isotope atoms in any source anywhere in the world. That we don't know. It's an assumption of how many parent atoms are in there. And then we count the daughter atoms, which is decaying parent atoms, into decaying atoms. And there's a ratio between those two. The problem is we don't know if that sample also includes daughter atoms that didn't come from the parent atoms within the radiometric isotopes. And the same for parent atoms. We know that if you drop one rock down to another, it will transfer parent atoms into the other rock. And so I'm bringing that up for a point is the argument that it's scientific fact is a delusion, whether they think it is or isn't. The facts is it's an assumption, and they're assuming that the decay rate today is the same as it always has been.
And to me, that's one hill I really don't die on. I mean, if there's some way we can get the gospel into deep time, I don't know. I don't see it. The whole problem with sin and that. But you still have this modern cell that you're saying came from a primitive cell that still had to be very complex. First life, the first biology. So we'll stick in biology. And first biology had to be complex. And to think that unguided chemicals, because we know how to build these proteins, the building blocks, the amino acids and stuff like that. And it's not going to happen. We know the complexity of the simplest RNA, which collapses real quick. It doesn't even last for that long, hours. And so the problem, and people say, oh, the God of the gaps. No, there's Darwin of the gaps.
Yeah.
Because this
technically
this
both have gaps. Technically, there's both gaps because we don't know everything. So
exactly, and that's where this channel lives and dies on Christ and Him crucified. I know we're young Earth creationism, but that to me is important, is how you become a child of God. And so
right,
that doesn't matter how many days or whatever, deep time, short time, but the key is that we need a savior, and I just don't see how to get that out of deep time. But again, that's our my stance here. I know Stephen just had a show today. It was like, we're standing on, the 7-day creation. I'm there, but it's not. I'll agree to disagree with something if they're trusting in Jesus.
Yeah, and for me, it goes even, on the Christian side. I do not believe in a 6 24-hour day creation. I believe in a 6 1,000 day 1,000 year day creation. So the earth being 13,008 years old. I can argue that case and I can prove it biblically that could be a valid assumption based off the data we have in the Bible. But the thing is the best source is to be able to present the data and let people decide. For me, when it comes to evolution, I still can't wrap my head around where this whole idea that abiogenesis has nothing to do with evolution is just, I can't see how that should or could even be an argument. Because
Well, actually, so what it is definitions, and when they say evolution, they mean biological evolution. So of course, biology has nothing to do with biological evolution,
Yeah.
but that's where they're kind of cheating on it
they are
because,
cheating
like I
on it.
said, even
They are
Berkeley,
cheating on it because you're
even
going from a chemical
even
reaction.
Berkeley,
You're going from a chemical
yes,
reaction into
universities,
life, and that's a process that can't be
and
proven.
so even universities have the studies of chemical evolution, the universe and its evolution. So it's a very easy way to say, I just hit a grand slam, but I just won this game, but the game was over 2 hours ago. It's kind of, they're arguing, oh, we got this real concrete evidence, but your foundation is nothing.
Well, and I think it
unless
goes to support a lot of what David's, right? Is, if I come on here and just throw out all my facts and be like, it's proven, done deal, I won. Well, if I'm a believer and I die a believer and nobody changes their mind because of my arrogance, did I really win? No. If are we going to win over Dave if we just come in here and think, well, I had better arguments, I won? No. This, for me, I could say nothing for the rest of my life and die, and in my beliefs, I know I'll be fine and I'll be with my Savior in heaven. But what good is that if that's the approach I take, right? The intent for us as Christians to come out here and do what we do to present our arguments is to give a basis for non-believers to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe there is some credibility to this thing. Can I look into it, right? The whole attack that there's no evidence of the flood of Noah on the earth is what scientists say. But if we present evidence to back up that the flood of Noah actually is credible, then that can bring someone to being like, well, maybe there is something to this. Let me investigate. And I think that's the approach that many Christians do fail at. And I've been a victim of that myself, just, for being a grown up and part of this, that, I'm trying to adjust my approach right now as to being, it's better for me to just present my information that I've learned and then hope that somebody else might, cause them to rethink what they're thinking and maybe lead them to the Bible. And I'm not perfect and I've made mistakes in the past, but right now I am actively trying to adjust that for myself so that I'm not coming out swinging hard, but can present evidence to saying, hey, maybe evolution, life from one life, and maybe billions of years isn't quite as factual as we may think. What other options are there that might better explain what we're experiencing? And hopefully that leads them to
exactly. And I better get out of here. My wife's gonna end my life, and I'll see if there's a Jesus or not. But
we can hang out in the after show. Who's all here? It's me, DC, and who else?
I think Michael came back on, and so
yeah, we can hang out in the after show. Michael seems cool.
Yeah, and yeah, so that would be awesome. I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for everybody who listened, participated, and we're just here all walking through this life, walking on this planet, trying to figure out something. Yeah, I just know now, Dave, I'm not going to go start proselytizing in parts of Mongolia. I'll keep my Bible in my, I'll witness with my love, and I do want my head staying on. And,
you won't be like. I mean, the thing about that too is foreigners are not allowed to proselyte. You would just be deported.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
and that's
that's
what
that's
that's
all.
kind of tongue in cheek, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just we are, yeah, we're all trying, and again, it's like dying on that hill. We want everybody. God bless.